In the year 2021, we celebrate the 20th anniversary of our cultural and historical society, Dagmaria. In this video, we will show the milestones in the development of Dagmaria, tell and show the results of our projects. We wish to start by explaining the name of our society. The founder of the society is Irina Demidova, who came to Denmark in 1998 and, like many immigrants, wanted to preserve the regional culture and customs and peacefully integrate with the new culture and customs. Copenhagen, where Irina lives, is rich with historical buildings and cultural sites. The Danish princess Dagmar married the future Russian Tsar Alexander III and became the Russian Empress Maria Fedorovna. She was mother of the last Russian Emperor Nicholas II. Maria Fedorovna immigrated to Denmark during the events of the Russian Revolution and found her last refugee in Copenhagen, Denmark. Her so-called small court consisted of noble families, servants, Kazakhs followed her into immigration. Later, many of these people were buried in the Assistens Cemetery in Copenhagen, which we will mention many times in this film. Surrounded by historical relics in Copenhagen, it was natural for Irina to become interested in the history of Maria Fedorovna and other immigrants, because she lived a similar life. An interesting historical fact: the Russian Tsar Alexander III called Maria Fedorovna Dagmaria, which was a combination of her original name Dagmar and her name after her baptism in the Russian Orthodox Church, Maria. Together, it turned out to be Dagmaria. Since the main emphasis in our works is placed on the preservation of historical and cultural ties between Russia and Denmark, the choice of this name for our society was quite natural. As for the chairman of our society, Irina Demidova, the Demidov surname has a deep history. The Demidov clan dates back to the times of Emperor Peter the Great. Their skills and work increased the number of Russian entrepreneurs who earned and took the title of nobility under Peter the Great, thanks to the creation of arms and mining enterprises in Tula and the Urals. The founders of many Ural cities, who made an invaluable contribution to the development and the development of Ural land, were known as patrons of the city of Moscow, were and remain honorary trustees of the State University of the country. Many of the Demidovs contributed to the development of Russia, being the rulers of the city of the great empire. In 1905, part of the Demidovs family moved to Italy, receiving the title of nobility of San Donato, linking their family with many noble families of Europe. The coat of arms of the Demidov family has a short but characteristic and general description of the representatives of this family, not in word but in deed. Asta non vera. A short history of the Demidovs family will help in the course of this video to understand and explain many of Irina's motives, actions and deeds during many years of her life and active position to recover interesting pages of Danish-Russian history. Having a special dedicated relationship to the royal family, Irina devoted a lot of time and effort to preserving the places associated with the memory of the Romanovs in Denmark, which is the regularity since the last Tsar Nicholas II, the son of Empress Maria Fedorovna, née Danish Princess Dagmar, and his children, grandsons of Empress Maria Fedorovna, were and remain relatives of the royal house of Denmark, and now living Queen of Denmark, Her Majesty Queen Margrethe II. If you are walking along the central streets of Copenhagen, your attention will invariably be attracted by the golden domes of the Russian Church, which is located very close to the Amalienborg Palace complex. In 1998, Irina decided to stay in Denmark. At this time, she showed interest in studying the history of the Russian Orthodox Church in the name of the Holy Blessed Prince, or in Russian Knyaz Alexander Nevsky in Copenhagen. Its creators, Empress Maria Fedorovna and Emperor Alexander III. The church itself, which has a history of 135 years, turned out to be a remarkable object of historical research, especially the story of Empress Maria Fedorovna, née Danish Princess Dagmar, both her life in Russia and later in Denmark after her first return to her historical homeland on April 19, 1919. The trials that fell to the lot of Empress Maria Fedorovna, mother of the Holy Tsar Martyr Nicholas II, are so great and tragic that they are akin to the trials that true and pious Christian spouses and mothers were subjected to during the years of persecution from the pagans. God saved Maria Fedorovna for a long and mournful life. None of the Russian empresses lived so long, and not one died in exile, deprived of the throne and the opportunity to rest in peace next to the spouse and children. But few people know that even before the bloody 1917, the Empress suffered many mental anguish. Here's a short list of the losses that Maria Fedorovna suffered in her entire life. At the age of 17, in April 1865, she loses her fiancé, the heir to the Russian throne, Tsarevich Nikolai Alexandrovich. He died of an attack of an incurable disease at the age of 20. After 5 years, she mourns her 1-year-old son, Grand Duke Alexander, who died on his birthday on April 20th, 1870. 10 years will pass, and on May 22nd, 1880, together with all Russia, she will mourn her mother-in-law, Empress Maria Alexandrovna. And after 9 months, new terrible news about the murder of her father-in-law, Emperor Alexander II, the Liberator. The tragic death on March 1st, 1881, of father-in-law, the Russian Emperor Alexander Alexandrovich, opened for her not only the road to the Russian throne, but also to dramatic events in the future. In 1884, uncle of Empress Maria Fedorovna, 58 years old Landgrave Friedrich Wilhelm, died. The dangerous crash of the Tsar's train on October 17, 1888, and the assassination attempt in Otsu on her oldest son, Tsarevich Nikolai Alexandrovich, committed on April 29, 1891, were the signs in which she would see a formidable warning for herself and her family. The premature death of the beloved spouse of the 49-year-old Emperor Alexander III on October 20, 1894, will interrupt the Empress's happy family life. For long 33 years she will be the Empress Dowager. Not a single Russian Empress wore mourning for her deceased spouse for so many years. 4 years after the death of her husband, in 1898, Maria Fedorovna will mourn for her mother, Queen Louise of Denmark. Not having time to recover from the loss of her dear mother, Empress Maria Fedorovna experiences a new shock. On June 28, 1899, at the age of 28, the third son of Empress, Tsarevich Georgy Alexandrovich, died untimely. 7 years later, in 1906, Maria Fedorovna loses her beloved father, 88-year-old King Christian IX. In 1910, a new misfortune was death of the Empress's father-in-law, 69-year-old English King Edward VII, who was the spouse of Maria Fedorovna's sister Alexandra. A new loss occurs after 2 years, in 1912. At the age of 59, after a short rule of Denmark, Freddy, the Empress's older brother, King Frederick VIII, passed away. A year later, in 1913, another brother of Maria Fedorovna, Wilhelm, King George I of Greece, will die. He will be killed by a lone Greek terrorist. A year later, the terrible First World War will begin. All time of the war will be overshadowed by great hardship and emotional upheavals. In March 1917, the Dowager Empress spoke for the last time with her oldest son, Emperor Nicholas II. This meeting took place in Mogilev, at the headquarters of the Supreme Commander-in-Chief. She spent 3 days in the company of her beloved Niki, the dear Tsar. Before leaving, the Empress wept bitterly. Her son was taken under arrest to Tsarskoye Selo, and she went to Kiev. She will never see her firstborn or grandchildren on earth again. At the end of 1917, the Empress wrote her last letter to her son. On June the 13th, 1918, Maria Fedorovna loses her youngest son, Mikhail Alexandrovich. Bolsheviks barbarously killed him in a town called Perm. On the night of July 16-17th of 1918, the most terrible tragedy happened, in which the Empress did not want to believe until her death. In Yekaterinburg, in the Ipatiev house, family of Nicholas II was brutally murdered. Her son Nikolai, daughter-in-law Alexandra, grandson Alexei, and 4 beautiful princesses, granddaughters, Olga, Tatiana, Maria, Anastasia. Of the 6 children Maria Fedorovna gave birth to, only 2 survived. It was daughters Ksenia and Olga. In April 1919, the Bolsheviks' troops were approaching Crimea. Dowager Empress departed into exile from Russia on the British warship Marlborough. Maria Fedorovna's sister, Queen Alexandra of England, and King George V sent this ship for the evacuation of Maria Fedorovna and her relatives. It is at their insistence that the 72-year-old Empress Dowager of all Russia, for the first time in the history of our fatherland, leaves the second homeland. Until recently, it seemed like forever. But let's come back to 1999. For the then young society Dagmaria, the life of forced immigrants who came with Maria Fedorovna to Denmark, Assistens Cemetery, where they were buried, became part of the study and care. Studying the biographies, care for the graves at the Assistens Cemetery in Copenhagen, this is what Dagmaria did at first. Cemetery Assistens is located in the Copenhagen area called Nørrebro. It has 2 Russian plots, one bought by the Emperor Alexander III in 1893 and the second by his son Nicholas II in 1912. Irina's arrival in Copenhagen coincided with the appointment of the new priest at St. Prince Alexander Nevsky Church. The first joint works, cleaning the church, repairing church utensils, sewing new vestments to replace the old ones. Having a social character, Irina attracted other parishioners to work in the church for the spiritual benefit of the latter. The image shows handmade patrons created by the sisters of the Kostroma Women Monastery and represented as a gift to the end of construction and blessing of the Church of St. Prince Alexander Nevsky in September 1883. The works continued, as did the acquaintance with the history of the church. So, for example, the so-called Empress Maria Fedorovna Lokar. After death of the Empress in 1928, it was donated to the church by the family of Grand Duchess Olga Alexandrovna, the youngest daughter of the Empress. Old church banners, a huge, beautiful chandelier, personal icons of the royal family, the wonder-making Jerusalem icon of the Mother of God, a church staircase made of white marble, an icon of Saint Nicholas who came to the church by water in 1914, church bells, an icon of Saint Alexander Nevsky on a volcanic stone under golden domes. All this boggled the imagination, made it possible to touch the history here and now. The history of the beautification of the church and the arrival of Irina, which began in 1999, continued in the year 2000 and grew into care, restoration and care of the burial places. These works continue until now. Year 2001. In the Russian section of the Assistance Cemetery, among 169 graves, the grave of Timofey Yashik was discovered. He was chamber Cossack of Empress Maria Fedorovna, who arrived in Denmark with the Empress in 1919 and died in 1946. Completely unexpectedly, Irina found and acquired an icon signed by Timofey Yashik. In 1946, he gave it to his godson and left a dedication message on the back of the icon. New participants in this study of the biography of the Empress's Cossack life appear. Irina meets the chief architect of the Copenhagen Commune, Finn Plow. The next important step was the search for materials in the archives of Denmark in cooperation with the National Museum, Tøjhus Museum, the Copenhagen Commune, and the administration of the Assistance Cemetery. An autobiographical book, Memoirs of Timofey Yashik, was found in the Royal Library. It was published in Danish and dated 1968. Kazak tells about his childhood, about being called up for the service in the Imperial Army, about participation in the First World War, about serving Emperor Nicholas II, serving Empress Maria Fedorovna in Imperial Russia and later in the Kingdom of Denmark. There is no reliable information about who helped Timofey Yashik in writing the book, because he did not speak Danish well enough, since throughout his life in Denmark he hoped to return to Russia. It should be said that in 1921 the courageous wife of Timofey Yashik, Maria Samsonovna, was shot by the Bolsheviks in the village of Novominskaya. 9 children were left orphans. Later, Timofey Yashik married a Danish woman, Agnes Obrik. Later, she was baptized in the Russian Orthodox Church with name Nina. The marriage was blessed by Empress Maria Fedorovna in mid-1920s. Most probably, Agnes helped in writing and publication of the book. Back in 2002, work began on the translation of the book of Timofey Yashik, Memoirs, from Danish into Russian. At the same time, we continued to search and collect additional information for the first Russian language edition of the memoirs in the Danish archives and Royal Library. At the same time, an exhibition about Kazakh Timofey Yashik was held at the Tøjhus Museum in Copenhagen. We had a lot of meetings with directors of museums, with administration of the Assistance Cemetery, cooperation with the Danish Institute of Culture. In this later led to the publication of the book. Here is a short list of Dagmaria's projects from that period of time. visit to the village of Novominskaya, the homeland of Timofey Yashik, meeting with daughter of Timofey Yashik, reaching archival materials for the period from 1918 to 1920, searching for information about the birth of the youngest son of Olga Alexandrovna Guri in the village of Novominskaya in 1919. An important event in 2004 was the work on the restoration of the cross on the grave of Timofey Yashik and its installation in the presence of the representative of the Copenhagen Commune administration, Ambassador of Russia in Denmark, Dmitry Rurikov. In this active and interesting time, Irina worked in the church archives. She came across a letter of gratitude for the Danish lawyer J. Troll. The history of its writing is as follows.
In 1925, a threat loomed over the Russian church in Copenhagen, which came from the newly formed USSR. The church in Copenhagen was seized and renamed into the Russian House, and only thanks to the activity of the parishioners of the church, the competent help of the lawyer Troll, the trial was won in the Supreme Court of Denmark to protect the church from Bolshevism, which reached the Russian church in Denmark by 1925. A letter of gratitude to the Danish lawyer Jørgen Troll was written by Grand Duchess Olga Alexandrovna, daughter of Empress Maria Fedorovna. It was signed by the Empress, members of imperial family, priest and confessor of the Empress Leonid Kolchev, noble parishioners of the church. In 2004, on the basis of the letter of gratitude, postcards with the view of the church were published, which delighted guests and parishioners of the church.
At the same time, work of the translation of the book Memoirs of Kozak Timofey Yashik was on the way. New materials were collected in the archives to supplement the book. At the same time, we met director of the Tolhus Museum, where at the time an exhibition about Timofey Yashik was held. On the advice of the museum director, we held a meeting with the administration of the Assistant Cemetery to coordinate our works. Thanks to this meeting, Irina developed not only friendly relations with the cemetery architect, but also provided great assistance in the restoration of the destroyed graves of the Russian side, one of which was the grave of Timofey Yashik. At the same time, an interesting meeting took place with the great-granddaughter of Empress Maria Fedorovna, Ksenia Nilsen, daughter of Guri, son of Olga Alexandrovna, who was born in the village of Novominskaya, the birthplace of Timofey Yashik. Upon completion of the translation of the book, a meeting was held with the director of St. Petersburg branch of the Danish Institute of Culture in St. Petersburg, Rege Helms. It was surprising that the Danish Institute of Culture, independently of the work of Dagmaria, received financial support from the Danish Foundation headed by the Crown Princess Mary for the translation and printing of the Book of Memoirs of Timofey Yashik. In 2004, by joining efforts, the Danish Institute of Culture and Dagmaria Society published the book Memoirs of Timofey Yashik next to the Impress. The Danish Institute of Culture was preparing this project for the reburial of Empress Maria Fedorovna from Denmark to Russia in 2004. Although, due to political reasons, the reburial did not take place that year and was postponed to 2006. The presentation of the book took place in 2004 in the former residence of the royal family in the Gatchina Palace. Work on the book continued until 2006. Second edition of the Book of Memoirs was published in 2007 with the addition of materials about Timofey Yashik from the archives of his family, archival documents from the village of Novominskaya, information and photographic materials about the reburial. The book was published with the support of Danish foundations and the Danish Institute of Culture. The presentation of the book took place in the presence of relatives of Timofey Yashik in Anichkov Palace in 2007. This research for relatives was carried out by the Cultural Historical Society Dagmaria for several years. In 2004, Irina traveled to the homeland of Timofey Yashik in Krasnodar region, meeting with the youngest daughter of Timofey Yashik, Anna Timofeyevna. Irina worked in the local archive to collect historical materials. Anna Timofeyevna turned out to be a blind 94 years old woman. Therefore, to our great regret, Anna Timofeyevna could not see the photo materials which Irina brought from Denmark. But the soil from the grave of her father, Timofey Yashik, from the distant Danish cemetery assistance, was very dear to her. On January 25, 2006, after waiting for news from her father in the form of a book of memoirs published in 2004, Anna Timofeyevna died peacefully. The opportunity to put a cross on Timofey Yashik's grave appeared in 2004, thanks to joint work with the Copenhagen Kommune, Tøjhus Museum, the National Museum, the chief architect of the Assistance Cemetery, Finn Ploug. Running a little ahead, in 2005, thanks to the joint work of the Russian Embassy in Denmark and the initiative of Dagmaria Society, the Kuban Kazakh Corps was invited to Denmark. The concert took place in the old world-famous Copenhagen Tivoli Park. Modern Kazakh uniforms were transferred to Denmark, although the authentic clothes and personal items of Timofey Yashik are in the collection of relatives of his Danish wife. They are used for exhibitions in Denmark. From year to year, receiving new information about history of Danish-Russian relations, the Cultural Historical Society Dagmaria has collected a huge amount of materials about the life and work of the youngest daughter of the Empress, Maria Fedorovna. The Grand Duchess Olga Alexandrovna, after the revolution, was also imprisoned in Crimea by the Bolsheviks, but in 1919, not wanting to leave Russia, she moved to the homeland of Timofey Yashik, where in the same year she gave birth to her second son, Guri.
The Tsar's grandson had a mark in the passport saying that his place of birth was the village of Novominskaya. Guri, first daughter Ksenia Nilsson, granddaughter of Olga Alexandrovna, until the death of her grandmother, was very close to her. She is very similar to her grandmother in courage and simplicity. Ksenia introduced Dagmaria to the paintings and artworks of her grandmother. This led to the creation of a new project, postcards with watercolors of the Grand Duchess Olga Alexandrovna.
Postcards were published in collaboration with the museums Amalienborg and Frederiksborg. With the permission of the Royal House of Denmark, the Cultural Historical Society Dagmaria was granted permission to visit the closed tomb of the Danish royal family. 2002-2006. Until the day of the reburial of the remains of Empress Maria Fedorovna from Denmark to Russia, thanks to the concerns of society, funeral church services were held at the royal tomb on the memorial days of the royal family. The grave was decorated with flowers. The royal tomb looked especially solemn on Easter and Christmas days. An icon of Maria Fedorovna's son, Tsar Nicholas II, and his children, who were brutally murdered in Russia in 1918, was transferred from Russia to the Empress's tomb. In these years, we have had close communication with Tatiana Ladizhinskaya, daughter of one of the Russian emigrants. Thanks to these meetings, the archive of Dagmaria was replenished with a simple, at first glance, photograph. This way, we learned that the second Kazakh of the Empress, Kirill Ivanovich Polyakov, came to Denmark in 1919. This new information was the beginning of the new project of Dagmaria. Research in the archives for materials about Kirill Ivanovich Polyakov. And again, the archives of Denmark, inquiries and searches for the relatives in Russia, restoration of the grave, replenishment of the archive of Dagmaria with the new materials. It is prescient to say that the archive of our society is being replenished from the founds of Denmark, Russia, England, America, and by now it has more than 3,500 materials. Largely due to active contacts and search and interest of our society in the Russian part of the central alley of Assistance Cemetery, interest from the Danish side also began to grow. After visiting our exhibitions, reading printed materials, and our website, people began to visit the cemetery and its Russian sites. Over time, it became necessary to change the appearance of the plots on Assistance, by that time very neglected. In the summer 2004, guided by the old architectural plan of the Russian sites in Assistance Cemetery, through the efforts of Dagmaria Society members and their families, 33 graves were restored on the new Russian site, which is located near the central alley of Assistance Cemetery. Passers-by showed interest in the works of the graves, and our little children, who already knew from their parents the stories of people whose graves were looked after by adults, eagerly told the history of the Russian sections and the biographies of the Russian people lying in the Danish soil. An interesting story happened during these years with the director of the Copenhagen Commune, who also oversaw the cemeteries. After reading one of the letters, signed by Fleming Torilov, we were surprised by the Russian surname of the Dane. The history of Torilov clan was found and clarified in the archives. It turns out that in 1919, together with Empress Maria Fedorovna, General and head of the imperial house Sergei Dolgorukiy and his servant with surname Torilov boarded the English ship Marlborough. Time passed, Sergei Dolgorukiy moved to France, and his servant, having started a family, remained to live in Denmark. Thus, his grandson was involved in the restoration of the Russian section of the cemetery. In 2004, Tatiana Sergeyevna Ladyshinskaya, having lived a long and vibrant life, died and was buried next to her parents and brother at the old Russian plot, but already renovated and well-groomed site of Assistance Cemetery.
Year 2005. In the course of research works on the history of Denmark and Russia, unknown material was discovered about the most interesting and sad history of the Imperial House of Russia and Royal House of Denmark. Back in 1780, Grand Dukes Peter Antonovich, Alexei Antonovich, Grand Duchess Ekaterina Antonovna and Grand Duchess Elizabeth Antonovna was secretly sent to the provisional Danish city of Horsens. Prior to that, all four were held in custody in the Arkhangelsk region of Russia without the right to contact any people. The conditions of detention were very severe.
In infancy, they were left without mother. They were separated from their older brother, Emperor Ivan VI, raised by their father, Anton Ulrich of Braunschweig, heir to the crown. After the death of their father, they were secretly transported by a ship to Denmark, to the city of Horsens. The Dowager Queen of Denmark, Juliana Maria, their father's sister, agreed to accept them. The National Museum of Denmark, the city museums of Horsens, Rosenborg Castle, Frederiksborg Museum, Copenhagen City Museum, archives, preserved documents and the catalogue of the sale of property after their death. The Empress Catherine II sent money allowance for the Grand Dukes on a monthly basis. After studying archival materials, the Cultural Historical Society Dagmaria established contact with the administration of the Monastery Church of Horsens, with the administration of the Horsens Archive, the museums of Horsens.
We discovered that 4 Grand Dukes and Duchesses were buried in 1782, 1787, 1798 and 1807 in the right side altar of the monastery church, but after 300 years the burial place turned into a church utility warehouse, and 4 coffins of the sufferers were lowered into the ground. The Cultural Historical Society Dagmaria, with the support of the administration of the Monastery Church of Horsens, prepared and brought the premises into the proper appearance of the princely burial vault.
Several icons were brought by the member of the Dagmaria Society, Natalia Bach. An Orthodox cross was found in the Horsens Monastery Church. An exhibition was organized in 2006. Throughout the year 2005, preparations of the exhibition were carried out. Archival materials were collected. We were looking for contacts in Russia with the last place of their imprisonment, the city of Kholmogory, Arkhangelsk region. The Kholmogory Archbishop's house was a prison for them for many sad years. Kholmogory and Horsens, these 2 cities played a significant role in the lives of martyrs and confessors of patience and humility. In Horsens they were free, but an unfamiliar city, an unknown Danish language, a different way of life, all these circumstances did little to please the exhausted people who were blind, deaf, physically mutilated from the disrespectful and rude maintenance from the infancy in Kholmogory. Unfortunately, there are almost no portraits or paintings where you could see what the 4 princes and princesses looked like. After the death of Princess Catherine, the property was sold at auction. The materials collected by the Dagmaria Society are very rare. For example, in the archives of Rosenborg Castle Museum, a medallion with the image of Princess Catherine was found. Through the establishment of contacts with the administration of the church in Horsens, our society received an opportunity to look after the resting place. In the same year, 2005, a meeting was organized with a priest from the town of Kholmogory, Arkhangelsk region, Father Leonti, who came to Horsens, attended the church and served the first memorial service after such a long oblivion. Work has begun on the Horsens Prisoners project. Since father of 4 princes, Anton Ulrich, was from Germany, we made a request to the archive of the city of Brunswick, thanks to which new materials were added to the archive of the society.
The logo of the Cultural Historical Society Dagmaria deserves special attention. Once, in an antique shop, we purchased a commemorable plate with the image of Empress Maria Fedorovna, made in memory of her 70th birthday. The anniversary plate was made at the Royal Porcelain Factory. We have received permission from the Royal Porcelain Factory to use the commemorative as a logo. Also, in 2005, there was a memorable meeting with the Danish journalist Jan Ekstrom, who photographed memorable events in Denmark for our society. We continue to restore the destroyed graves at the Assistance Cemetery. Visits to the burial place of Empress Maria Fedorovna in the royal tomb of the church in Roskilde, laying flowers on memorable days, holding funeral services, participation in the interstate project of Denmark and Russia for the reburial of Empress Maria Fedorovna continued. Our society helped to establish ties between the administration of the city of Roskilde, Roskilde Cathedral, the Royal House, and the administration of the President of Russia, the administration of the Peter Pavlovsk Fortress, to prepare the reburial of the remains of Empress Maria Fedorovna in Russia. A long time ago, she prepared a place for herself near the tomb of her beloved husband. There she rested in peace 74 years later, having undergone exile, humiliation, death of close and dearly beloved relatives. Year 2006. On the day of the reburial of Empress Maria Fedorovna, commemorative postcards were issued in St. Petersburg. Our society developed design of these postcards. The publication was supported by the Danish Institute of Culture and the printing house Nestor. The postcards turned out to be a symbol of the solemn event. The postcards depicted memorable events and places of the reburial, a worship that delivered the remains of Empress Maria Fedorovna from Denmark to Russia, Hans Christian Andersen farewell verse of 1866 dedicated to the young Danish Princess Dagmar and the Empress monogram. Also, on the day of the Empress's reburial, lectures were held in the Swedish Church of St. Petersburg about her life. In the same period of time, our society, together with Copenhagen Commune, the Ballerup Museum of the Grand Duchess Olga Alexandrovna, the War Museum, Toyhus Museum, and the Assistance Cultural Center organized and held an exhibition. The backbone of the exhibition was made up of items from the private collection of the family of the second wife of Timofey Yashik. These included the uniform, personal items, documents and originals of the old paper money of Imperial Russia, which the faithful Cossack kept with the hope of returning to his beloved and lost Russia. By the date of the solemn reburial of Empress Maria Fedorovna on September 26, 2006, the Dagmaria Cultural Society, together with the Embassy of Ukraine in Denmark, the administration of the Royal Library, the Society of Veterans and Guards, the Romanov Foundation in Europe, with participation of Dmitry Romanov, who lived until his death in Denmark, the administration of Crimea and the administration of Livadia Palace, organized an exhibition in the Livadia Palace, the Romanov family in Crimea. Our society organized a visit to Crimea for a group of 35 Danes. In the same year, the first channel of Russia was engaged in the creation of the film 13 Moments of the Fate of Empress Maria Fedorovna. Our society took an active part in the filming. The main emphasis in the film was on the history of the restoration of the graves in the Russian section of the Danish Assistance Cemetery and the biography of the imperial house, the people buried in the cemetery. A little later, another film crew from the first channel of Russia visited Denmark to create a program about historical places in Denmark, about life of Empress Maria Fedorovna in Denmark, about work of Dagmaria Society. In the same year, we worked on the translation from the Danish into Russian of the book The Tale of the Three White Bears, with illustrations of Grand Duchess Olga Alexandrovna. A copy of the miraculous icon of so-called Jerusalem Mother of God was prepared. The prototype of this icon in Jerusalem Mother of God icon dated 1852, which was created by the monks Dionysius and was donated by the Russian monastery of Mount Athos to the Dowager Empress Maria Fedorovna. The Danish Princess Dagmar converted to the Orthodox faith on October 25, 1866, on the day of commemoration of the Jerusalem Mother of God icon. The Jerusalem icon turned out to the guide of the Empress' life, and in the last early year of her life, the Mother of God visited her chosen one, remaining in the Church of St. Alexander Nevsky in Copenhagen with a copy of the Jerusalem icon. On March 10, 1995, in the jubilee year of the 150 years anniversary of the birth of the founder of the Russian Church in Copenhagen, Emperor Alexander III, a miracle has happened. Suddenly, in the presence of the parishioners of the church during the evening service, tears appeared from the holy eyes of the Mother of God on the Jerusalem icon. In Orthodoxy, such an event is called mirror streaming and symbolizes a special appeal to us, people, or a warning from heaven. From 1995 to the present day, miracles from the Jerusalem icon continue. Prayers to the Mother of God in front of her Jerusalem image save people from serious illnesses, difficult situations in life. The Danes, following the example of their Danish princess Dagmar, come to the church showing interest in the fact of her mirror streaming and remain in the church after willing to be baptized. In 2005, Danish icon painter Birte Nielsen visited the church. We met with her. Birte agreed to create a copy of the Jerusalem icon for the celebration of the reburial of the remains of Empress Maria Feodorovna from Denmark to Russia by September 26, 2006. The copy of the Jerusalem icon was transported from Denmark to Russia. Birte Nielsen personally took place in the celebrations. Since 2006, she is a frequent visitor to Russia, studies Russian language, visits monasteries, especially loves the marvelous city of Suzdal with numerous monasteries and churches. Also in 2006, a great deal of work was completed to the translation from Danish to Russian of the book of memoirs of the maid of honor of Empress Maria Feodorovna Zinaida Magdan. The book was translated by the family of Alexander Komisarov, our tireless and humble member of the Dagmaria Society. It is thanks to his competent and professional work as the information director of the Society that we have the opportunity through the Dagmaria website to acquaint interest in readers with the news of our Society. Year 2007. Together with Assistance Cultural Center and the Belarus Museum, Dagmaria Cultural and Historical Society prepared a book design, a translation of the Book of Tales of the Three White Bears with illustrations by Grand Duchess Olga Alexandrovna. The presentation of the book and the Russian Bazaar were held at the Belarus Museum. Among these invited was the granddaughter of Empress Maria Feodorovna, the granddaughter of the Grand Duchess Olga Alexandrovna, who in 1925 illustrated the book, The Fairy Tale About Three White Bears. On October 28, 2008, Russia continued the Danish relay. The book was published in Moscow. The Danish Consulate General and the Danish Embassy in Moscow took part in the reprint of the book, The Tale of the Three White Bears. On the 160th anniversary of the birth of the Empress, together with Mogilov Museum of Local War, the exhibition Empress Maria Feodorovna, the Greatest of Fate, was organized and held. On the same date, in the Church of the Holy Blessed Prince Alexander Nevsky in Copenhagen, an exhibition was held jointly with the Assistance Cultural Center and Belarus Museum. Visits and funeral services continued in the burial vault of the Russian princes and princesses of the Horsens Church. Icons were donated in icon cases, for flowers were delivered to decorate the Russian border in the Danish church. In the Central Cathedral of Roskilde, in the crypt where Empress Maria Feodorovna was buried, in memory of her stay there from October 19, 1928 to September 26, 2006, a memorial marble slab and a plateau with the logo of the Cultural and Historical Society Dagmaria were erected. In the same year, a meeting with the Danish Bishop Arne Bugge took place. Arne was all his life in the ideal of man and the ideal of the Christian, the ideal of decency, the ideal of humanity. We were lucky to meet this amazing person in the last decade of his life. We regard this acquaintance as an honor. Once retired Danish Bishop Arne Bugge and free time to attend to services on the Russian Orthodox Church in Copenhagen. With a beautiful voice, he sang in the choir during the liturgy. He converted to Orthodoxy with the name Nikolai and passed away, leaving in the hearts of many people warmth and gratitude to God from meeting such a person. Work continued on the edition and preparation for the reprint of the second edition of the Book of Memoirs of Timofey Yashik, next to the Impress, and in 2007 this plan was implemented. The presentation took place in St. Petersburg in the former Imperial Palace, now the Museum of the Anichkov Palace. Year 2008. In commemoration of the 80th anniversary 1928-2008 of the death of Empress Maria Fedorovna, on the initiative of the Cultural and Historical Society Dagmaria, a memorial service was organized in the Peter and Paul Cathedral in St. Petersburg, and a photo exhibition about the life of Empress Maria Fedorovna in Denmark. Work continues on the improvement of the Russian site of the Assistance Cemetery in Denmark. In honor of the 125th anniversary of the founding of the Russian Church in Copenhagen, an exhibition was prepared and held about the founders of the church, Emperor Alexander III and Empress Maria Fedorovna, together with the Assistance Cultural Center and the Balerop Museum of Grand Duchess Olga Alexandrovna. Year 2009. Our society continued its educational activities in Scandinavia, so in particular in the Russian parish of Helsingborg a lecture was held on the miraculous icon of the Jerusalem Mother of God of Copenhagen and the founders of the church, the Holy Noble Prince Alexander Nevsky, in the city of Copenhagen. As far as possible, the improvement of a large number of destroyed graves of two sections, New Russian and Old Russian section of Assistance, continued. Lars Bach, who offered help with the organization of business correspondence with Dagmaria, the preparation and printing of information brochures of church content in the first year of the activity of Dagmaria Society in the Church of Saint Alexander Nevsky, made and installed 3 Orthodox wooden crosses on the graves in the New Russian section of the cemetery Assistance in Copenhagen. The 3 graves, Donskoy chambers of the Cossack of Empress Maria Fedorovna, Kirill Ivanovich Polyakov, loyal maid of honor of the Empress Zinaida Magdan, Lieutenant General Sergei Pototsky and his wife Sofia Pototskaya. Year 2010. A lot of work was done and a wonderful book in Danish, In the Shadow of Dagmar, was published. The publication was carried out jointly with Copenhagen Kommune, the Assistance Cultural Center and the Royal Library, private and state archives. The materials of the archive of the Cultural Historical Society Dagmaria were used as well. This year, with the support of the Russian parish of the Moscow Patriarchate and the Russian Embassy, the Society organized an excursion to Christian places in Denmark. The name of Queen Dagmar is associated with the veneration of the Orthodox shrine, whether it is realized or not, but this shrine is Cross of Dagmar. In Denmark, girls receive such a cross at the baptism, and since ancient times it has been presented to brides as a wedding gift. So in 1863, the daughter of King Christian IX, Princess Alexandra, received such a cross as a gift of her wedding date with the Duke of Wales, Edward later King of England. The Dagmar cross was found in 1683 under the floor opposite to the altar in the church as the burial site of King Eric VI and his wife was being prepared. Queen Dagmar was buried at this place 4 centuries before this burial. A small golden cross with enamel was found in her grave. The original is in the National Museum and the copy is in the church. Scientists believe that this cross was made by Byzantine craftsmen in the 11th century. Year 2011. This year there was an interesting meeting with the owners of the house called the Imperial Villa, Henrik and Maria, visiting the house near the summer royal residence of Frederiksborg. The house was purchased in 1885 by Emperor Alexander III. Such a purchase was made because in the summertime a large royal family gathered from different countries to small, cozy Denmark. The time passed very joyfully, the children had fun, the adults talked and rested. Emperor Alexander III used to work hard and he needed silence. Walking in the park and the surrounding area of the palace, the Emperor Alexander Alexandrovich found a small and cozy house not far from the palace, the owner of which happily sold him the house, which was later called the Imperial House. Having bought a modest and small house, Emperor Alexander III and Empress Maria Fedorovna rejoiced at the opportunity to retire at least occasionally with their family. Subsequently, their children fell in love with the comfort of a small house, happily spent the summer time, kept the secrets of childhood and especially youth. In 1894, after the death of Emperor Alexander Alexandrovich, Maria Fedorovna covered the windows with the velvet curtains and never again visited her beloved little house, in which she spent so many joyful minutes with her beloved husband and the dear father of her children. The house was deserted for a long time, reminding the royal relatives of the mournful premature parting with the Emperor Alexander Alexandrovich, and the local ordinary population, neighbors living nearby, sympathized with their dear Dagmar, who bitterly mourned the separation from her husband. In 1904, a fire broke out near the Frederiksborg Royal Palace on a small Kaiserway street. The houses were burned down, and only the house Imperial Villa was not damaged, the remaining safe and sound, as did the Frederiksborg Royal Palace. In Frederiksborg Royal Park, among the many monumentals to members of the royal court, there is a modest monument to Emperor Alexander III, built at the expense of residents and neighbors of the Kaiserway street on their own initiative. The monument was erected for the 300 years anniversary of the House of Romanov in 1903. Looking ahead, in 2013, in honor of the 400 years anniversary of the House of Romanov, the Cultural and Historical Society Dagmaria, with the support of the Frederiksborg Commune in the Frederiksberg district in the park of Copenhagen, installed a bust of Empress Maria Fedorovna. Work and preparation for the creation of the bust began from scratch, as the need for the bust was, and the Society Dagmaria did not have any experience in this matter. First of all, we issued an information brochure and organized the creation of 6 models of various busts in Denmark and Russia. These layouts were presented for the preview and approval at meeting of the Frederiksborg Commune from 2012 to 2014, and only the last draft of the layout of the bust of Empress Maria Fedorovna was accepted and approved. Russian sculptor Sergei Bogoslavsky was able to create a beautiful bust that now adorns the city of Copenhagen. After the reburial of Empress Maria Fedorovna, the Russian Orthodox Church in Copenhagen received some icons and donative crowns from the royal tomb, 1928. Cultural Historical Society Dagmaria decorated the crowns of 1928 in memorable velvet frames. The story of the imperial villa in its modern form, construction and restoration work inside the house has been published. The current owner of the house, Henrik, created the Imperial Villa website. The most beautiful geographical location of the house at the approach to the Frederiksborg Park attracts the interest of tourists from different countries. Tourists in local resting Danes with great interest read the memorandum history of the gate on the gates of the imperial house by Henrik and Maria, and if the owners of the house, they are happy to invite curious people and tell the story of the villa. A priest from Russia came to consecrate the imperial villa in Frederiksborg. An old Orthodox rite was held, the consecration of the house. An essay, an article was written about this event. In the same year, a joint work with the studio Lotus Vision was carried out on the film Empress Anna Leopoldovna, or the Russian profile in Denmark.
Year 2012. Publication of postcards dedicated to the 400th anniversary of the House of Romanov. Work on the creation of the bust of Empress Maria Fedorovna on Frederiksberg Square. In addition, the brochure Empress Maria Fedorovna was prepared. Year 2013. This year for the Dagmaria Society was significant with the following events. A joint lecture with the Russian Embassy School in Denmark of the live Kazakh Timofey Yashik was held. A similar lecture was given at the Russian Culture Center in Copenhagen. For this, a consultation was held. The archival materials of the Society Dagmaria were used. Pupils of the 10th grade took first place in the competition among the Russian embassy schools in the world, and then the history teacher presented the materials donated by the Dagmaria Society as his own. The head of the Holy Martyr Pope Lucius, who has been the recognized saint patron of Denmark since year 1002, has been discovered. Society Dagmaria organized a prayer service to St. Lucius in the church of St. Ansgar in Copenhagen. We have translated the book about St. Lucius from Danish into Russian. We also created and published a short film about the saint in Russian. This film is a life of saint literally glued together from old graphical miniatures. The film is available on the internet free of charge. An exhibition was held, organized together with the Society of the Archangel Mikhail in Minsk, dedicated to the 400th anniversary of the House of Romanov. In addition, we took part of the Sretinsky readings dedicated to the 400 years of anniversary of the Romanov House in Finland. In the same year, we took part in the Maritime Procession traveling exhibition. In 2013, the Danish Bishop Arne Brugge was baptized in Orthodoxy. The transition to Orthodoxy occurred with the name Nicholas. A bust was installed in honor of the reburial of Empress Maria Fedorovna on October 29, 2013. Year 2014. Two
Memorial crosses were installed in the two Russian sections of the Assistance Cemetery in Copenhagen. Since there are many graves on the Russian sides and there is no way to restore all the graves at once, the Cultural Historical Society Dagmaria acts systematically and gradually. We work together with the Copenhagen Commune, the Assistance Administration, a workshop in Minsk for the manufacture of wooden crosses, where the crosses were ordered and brought by sea procession. A common memorial cross has been established for all those buried in the Russian section. Work has been done to publish a book about Archimandrit Theophilus. We have collected materials. Writing 2 copies of the Jerusalem icon of Mother of God of Copenhagen for the 119th anniversary of the icon's painting and writing. Organization and holding of the Holy Cross in honor of the 119th anniversary of the writing of the Jerusalem icon of the Mother of God. A religious procession was held on the water around the sunken monastery where the icon was kept. Year 2015. In 2015, our society held an exhibition dedicated to the 119th anniversary of the acquisition of the Jerusalem icon of God. The life path of Maria Feodorovna from princess to Empress Dowager passed under the holy protection of this icon. Having adopted Orthodoxy on the date of the celebration of the Jerusalem icon of Mother of God, Maria Feodorovna, in the last year of her life, received the divine visit of the Queen of Heaven impersonated as icon. In April 1928, from the monastery of the intersection of the Holy Mount Athos, the image of the Jerusalem icon was sent as a gift and a consolation. The same one on the day of which the young Princess Dagmar in 1866 converted to Orthodoxy with the new name Grand Duchess Maria Feodorovna and was betrothed to her fiancé Cesarevich Alexander Alexandrovich. The spiritual mentor and teacher of young Dagmar was Archpriest Ioan Yanashev, who later became the confessor of the imperial family. He died in 1910. Maria Feodorovna left the earthly world in the same year, 1928, leaving behind not only a good bright memory but also a spiritual blessing, a copy of the miraculous icon of Mother of God of Jerusalem. The image became a real consolation for all the miraculously survived members of Maria Feodorovna's family, for the devoted members of the so-called small courtyard who came with her and for their families, for the parishioners of the Alexander Nevsky Cathedral built by her dear spouse, Emperor Alexander Alexandrovich. It is not surprising that on March 10, 1995, on the day of the anniversary of the founder of the church, on the day of his 150th anniversary, a miracle happened. The icon of Jerusalem Mother of God, who doesn't live with her veil in the memory of the royal family and the long-suffering imperial church itself at the different times of its long existence, blessed the parishioners to witness the holy tears pouring out of the most pure eyes. Year 2016. A book was published about Archimandrit Theophil, dedicated to the 20th anniversary of his death. The cemetery improvement work continues. The planting of evergreen plants is ahead. Collaboration with Amalienborg Museum in the archives of the publication of the postcard with a view of Amalienborg, watercolor by Grand Duchess Olga Alexandrovna. The same year we held an exhibition in the Krasnodar territory in the homeland of live Kazakh Empress Maria Fedorovna Timofey Yashik, in conjunction with the representation of the presidential administration of Russia in the Kuban region. The second revised edition of the book about Father Feofil was published in 2016 as well. Year 2017. Publication of the postcard Trinity Gate Church watercolor work by Grand Duchess Olga Alexandrovna. The churches of the 12th century. Care of the improvement of the Trinity Church in Kiev. Collection of materials about the church. Help to the orphanage Berezka. Year 2018. Preparation and holding of an exhibition dedicated to the House of Romanov, the history of the Romanovs in Kiev. Since 2017, work has begun on writing the book Scandinavia, Kievan, Rus. The book is being prepared jointly with the Historical Faculty of Kiev University, the archives of the Library of Ukraine in Denmark, with the support of the Royal Library in Copenhagen, the new University of Copenhagen. The book reveals the depth of the historical connection between the ancient history of Scandinavia and ancient Kievan Rus. The work was completed in 2019. An interesting project was the translation of O.C. Andersen's fairy tales into Ukrainian. Starting in 2018, the tales have been translated into Ukrainian by Pavel Branitzky. The text is arranged and set to music. Children's collectives and youth theaters, Ukrainian school stage musical tales of H. and Andersen, recalling the depth of the poet's Christian thoughts, sending the inhabitants of Ukraine to a distant small interesting country, the Kingdom of Denmark. One of the most interesting and unexpected for the society was the lightning-fast project associated with the monument of Alexander Vasilievich Suvorov in Kiev. Communicating with a university employee of the Department of History, we learned that in December 2018 it was decided to demolish the monument to Generalissimo Alexander Suvorov in Kiev, renaming the Suvorov Military School in Kiev for the political reasons in 2017. The Ukrainian authorities decided to demolish the monument of Alexander Suvorov, calling the monument the head of Moscow. The Cultural Historical Society Dagmaria, appreciating history and being familiar for many years with the exploits of the Generalissimo, not only in Russia but also in Europe, turned to Switzerland and the Suvorov Museum with a request to help and prevent outrage against the memory of Alexander Suvorov. The Swiss embassy in Kiev supported the initiative of Dagmaria, negotiated and bought the monument of Alexander Suvorov in January 2019, with further transfer of the monument to the Museum of Switzerland, with the subsequent installation in the museum. There are surprises that lie in the wait for the Cultural Historical Society Dagmaria in the international space of the world. To carry good in the main task of the Dagmaria Society, we are working with this. The preparation for the publication of the book about Danish and Ukrainian comfort, Hygge, the comparison of the Danish way of life in the style of Hygge and the comparison with the Ukrainian way of life is not accidental. Since the history of Denmark is closely intertwined with the history of Kievan Rus, the Ukrainian lifestyle is significantly different from the Scandinavian, Danish, but the book by Mikael Viking about the Danish experience and the image of Hygge has conquered the Ukrainian people in recent years. The circulation of the book amounted to more than 500,000 copies, and the word hygge has become very common in everyday life. Our society has developed a plan for preparing a book about the Ukrainian hygge in comparison with the tradition of the Danish and Ukrainian people. At present, work on the book continues in cooperation with the Ukrainian embassy in Denmark. Since 2007, the Dagmaria Society has been making regular visits to the Children's Oncology Department in the Hospital in Copenhagen. The Society donated children's books, postcards of its own issue, and for such holidays as Christmas and Easter, interesting and unusual gifts are brought from Ukraine. Each employee, an active member of society, tries to use his talents, skills, opportunities for creation for the good of society. Anyone who knows how to do computer updates and makes new crosses in the assistant cemetery, who knows how to look for information spends evenings in libraries in Denmark, who knows how to create sites on the internet, maintains and constantly updates our website www.dagmaria.dk, who paints icons, does it. This is how the list of the icon of the Jerusalem Mother of God was also written. Now this copy is in the Holy Mount Athos. Icon of the royal Persian beard, the Emperor Nicholas II. Icon of Pope Lucius I. This saint is the patron saint of Denmark and was glorified until the time of the division of the churches. Color oil painting was painted from the back and white photograph of the Vidore Villa, in which Empress Maria Feodorovna spent her last years. The monogram of Maria Feodorovna is embroidered. Currently, this embroidery is in Crimea in Livadia Palace. Several video films have been created which are the public domain on the website of our society. This was an incomplete list of the works of Irina and Dagmaria Society created by her. The list goes on, and we hope that Dagmaria will continue its work for a long time to come. All the projects mentioned were often accompanied by envy and irritation on the part of observers, not to mention the fact that there was never any help in financing, both from the state and from Russian organizations. How did they come true in this case? We can say so with certainty, only with God's help. This list doesn't include the names of people whom Irina helped and still helping. There are a lot of such people, and Irina was able to pay attention to each and provide assistance which was feasible and sometimes unbearable, losing her peace and convenience.